On this episode of Andrew Bernard Outdoors, I punched my 2021 Kentucky buck tag during the middle of the rut on a mysterious bruiser of a buck. So stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you know that I have been doing a lot of hunting this year. And not just here in my home state of Kentucky. I kicked things off here in Kentucky, then went to Nebraska, came back and got in Ohio for a little bit, and then ended up in Kentucky again. And it's been crazy, and I've done a lot of hunting, but I've had little success to show for it. Now, if you guys watched the last episode, you guys saw that I finally got the monkey off my back and got some meat in the freezer. And once I got a little confidence back in my system, it was now time to get back in the woods and start hunting the phases of the rut. After countless hours in the stand through late October into early November, I had not had one encounter with a mature buck. Well, as mid-November started to creep up, I decided to switch up tactics as the rut phase was starting to switch as well. Well, this morning I'm here at the hills checking cameras and getting ready for this weekend. This weekend is unfortunately opening day of gun season. I'll be out hunting, not with a firearm. Now, we're in the middle of the rut. I want to say right now we are probably in that lockdown phase. A lot of these bucks, the mature bucks, have somewhat disappeared. The doe numbers are starting to go down as well, meaning they're hiding. A lot of them are probably popping in the heat. And with that being said, getting corn back out here at the hills. I just pulled the chip on the food plot to see how that is looking. Looks like they're browsing on it a lot. So right now the scrapes have gone dark. I'm not seeing any open scrapes at the hills. I've just walked by a few of them and I'm not literally seeing any sign of open scrapes. However, the rub lines are still staying pretty hot here at the hills. So bucks are moving, not focusing on scrapes, which means probably does are popping. And again, as we get through the month, they're probably going to at some point shut off from the idea of breeding for a minute, focus on food, and then they'll come back in. But at the same time too, the does will eventually start to focus on food the colder the weather gets, which will bring these bucks through these areas. So for the remainder of November, we're going to sit on high traffic areas as well as food source areas and see what happens. But this weekend I'll be out and in that stand probably Saturday morning, and then Ohio will be on Sunday. But we're just going to keep hunting hard and see what happens, because this has been a very slow year for me and a very rough year to say the least, because I've not had many mature buck sightings. I'm getting a lot of trail cam pictures of them, but trail cameras don't mean anything. It's about what's on the wall and what you put on the ground. So gonna keep hunting hard. I'm gonna pull this chip, get some corn on the ground, and then we're gonna get out of here, and I'll be back here this weekend. So I'm tagged out in Kentucky. That is my first mature buck sighting of the season. I don't know who that deer is. I think we got pictures of him last year during the rut. Literally, I think around the same time of the year over at my dad's stand. And what's crazy is I literally was down at the truck this morning getting ready, and I could smell it in the air. And sure enough, like in the dark, I could tell just by the size of the body, it was a doe. She runs maybe 30, 40 yards by my truck while I'm getting ready. And right behind her's another couple bucks, grunting, snort wheezing at each other. So I hurried up, got ready, and then just booked it to my stand. I finally climb up in the stand, no more than like 2 minutes after legal shooting light. I look down the hill, and on the same trail that Dagger came up, there's a buck down there, and I'm trying to glass him because it was so dark I couldn't really tell who he was. Looked big body, looked real dark in the face. So I start glassing him, like, that's a pretty good deer, like I might shoot that deer. So I get my bow ready, get the GoPro rolling. I don't even know if you can see me when he first starts walking up the hill. But anyway, he comes up the hill, steps out into the corn, and I'm like, dude, that's a good deer. We're gonna kill that deer. I haven't done a talk scene, haven't shot any B-roll this morning, literally just got in the stand. And it is the opening day of gun season here in the state of Kentucky on November 13th. And the time is now 7:14 a.m. and I am tagged out. Literally, I knew this spot was gonna finally pay off. All the pictures I get in this area, this is a staging area. It's a giant intersection and staging area that literally connects all the trails that go from the entrances of the property for deer to come in and out of, the bedding areas and the food sources. It literally all meets right here. This has been the money spot. I've killed more bucks out of this set than any other spot on the property. This spot right here gets deer to come through here. I keep corn here because it keeps the does moving through here. So literally when the does are moving through here during the rut, the bucks are always coming through here to check for sign. There's fresh rubs all through this area. There's fresh scrapes that run through this area in late October to early November. And I said this, I came out maybe 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and I'm like, it's time to start putting corn back out here at the hills. And sure enough, it paid off. That buck, during the middle of the rut, when you get to middle of November, people don't realize this, but they start pre-rutting in late October. You get to the first week in November, and there's a few does that pop and go into heat, and a lot of times those mature bucks disappear, and they get on those does. And after they've already bred a doe, and they've been fighting off a couple bucks, sometimes they turn off just for a day and go back to the food sources. And if they can find an area that's got food, it's a travel corridor, they feel safe, like this staging area, they're going to move through here to not only check for scent, grab a bite to eat, but then move on to the next area, the primary spot that they want to go to, whether it's bedding, another food source, or, you know, whatever on the hills. And this spot is the money spot, man. The one bad thing about this morning's hunt is that I made a marginal shot, and I feel like that's been the story of my life this season. I put a couple bad shots on some does, and then this morning there was an opportunity here. It was a little dark. There's no excuses. I put a bad shot on the deer, but I climbed down as quick as I could, grabbed an arrow. I didn't even use the safety line to climb down. I just climbed down off the tree, ran down there and got another arrow in him, and watched him put his head down, and he was good to go. I wasn't about to walk up and try and use a knife because he was flailing around, and I'm not gonna get hit in the head or in the gut by an antler. So November, man. Well, I've done many walks to the stand this year. Done a lot of miles between Ohio, Kentucky, Nebraska, and finally in one of these states I got something on the ground. He's right down here. Look at this sucker. He is an old deer. At that, man. Look at the face on that buck. Busted off antler. Thick bases. Old deer, man. An old deer. All right, guys, so here it is, November 13th, the opening day of firearm season here in the state of Kentucky, and I'm officially tagged out. It's been a very, very long season. I have seen literally no mature bucks. This is the first mature buck that I've crossed paths with this season in 3 different states: Kentucky, Nebraska, Ohio. Nevertheless, I got a good buck on the ground. This is a very mature buck. I have 0 pictures of this deer this year, at least. We do think we have pictures of him last year, and it's kind of one of the same. It's kind of the same thing how we saw him today. It was the middle of rut, and there was a hot doe in the area, and this and another buck that have almost kind of the same genetics showed up on the farm for literally a day. And so when I first got a glimpse of him and I saw how dark his head was coming up that hill, I immediately was like, that's a good deer. Like, I'm not going to pass that deer, because I've passed deer before and then ended up eating my tag because I was chasing something bigger. And I say this time in and time out, I mean, my biggest thing when it comes to harvesting whitetails is the maturity. It's the chase of the mature buck that is very hard to hunt, that has been hunted before, and it is not easy to get in front of. And this deer is definitely an old buck. I mean, probably one of the biggest heads I've ever seen on a buck. His teeth are insanely worn down. He's got a scar on his front cheek over here. He's missing a G3 on his right main beam. But nevertheless, he's still a really good buck. He's got really impressive ones. He's a good deer. I'm very pleased with this buck. Any day of the week, like I said, I'm chasing maturity. It's the miles that make a man, and this buck has seen some miles. He's seen some wars. He's probably bred a lot of does, covered a lot of ground, rubbed a lot of trees. And the fact that we've never seen him before, we've never had him on camera, and it was just that chance that you're out here and you cross paths with a buck like that. That's what it's all about. You can't kill them at the house, and you got to log the hours. I've hunted so much this year between the 3 different states, but it was one of those things I just had to be in the stand. And for years, I've made the mistake of hunting with my cameras, and I emphasize this all the time to a few of my friends. Don't hunt using your cameras. A picture doesn't mean anything. It's about what's on the wall, and you get a lot of guys that wait for good bucks to show up on camera, and that's not how it needs to be done. That's not how you're going to kill mature bucks. You need to be out there when they're cruising through. And after the season I've had, it feels really good to actually put my hands on a mature, gnarly old buck like this. It was one of those things, like in the middle of the rut, you just never know who's going to show up. And as luck would have it, this morning they were definitely here. I had deer down at the truck while I was getting ready, and when I walked up, I kicked the deer off of that staging area, and then shortly after being set up, he comes right up the hill behind me and was on the corn within minutes. And I had to wait a little bit till it got a little bit lighter. Like I said, unfortunately, I put a bit of a high shot, but I got down as quick as I could, got another arrow in him, and put him down quickly. So all in all, what a hunt, what a buck, what a story. Guys, thank you so much. Be sure to like and subscribe if you already haven't, and then be sure to check out some of my other content, and I will catch you guys later on the next episode of Andrew Bernard Outdoors.